Shalom from Israel to all of the Daystar viewers around the world. I'm Moshe Bar Tzvi, the producer and founder of Israel Now News. We at Israel Now News are dedicated to bringing you the full story and the truth about Israel from Israel. It's written in the Holy Bible when David said in Psalm 25:5, "Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day long." And God says in Zechariah 8:16, "These are the things that you shall do. Speak out the truth to one another. Judge with truth and judgment to peace in your gates. And always search for the truth, and the truth shall set you free." John 8:31. I hope you enjoyed the program. God bless you from Jerusalem. Shalom, shalom.
Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner.
In our top story, the Knesset has been dissolved. It's official. The people of Israel will be going to the polls in a few months to elect a new government. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has called for national elections after deciding that he can no longer function with a divided cabinet. Israel has been reeling from a wave of terror attacks, and the political climate has grown more volatile as a result of the violence. Some Israeli security officials believe that Palestinian leaders are inciting terrorism in order to manipulate the political situation in Israel. Aaron has more on that story.
Yes, Yochanan, a senior Israeli security official told Israeli media that the recent wave of terror is a tool being used by PA leadership in Ramallah to incite the Palestinian street to cause havoc in Israel. Palestinian media is even portraying the upcoming elections as the downfall of Israel's government caused by their resistance through the use of terrorism. Meanwhile, the Hamas terrorist leaders of Gaza maintain that the holding of new elections in Israel is a clear sign that it won the summer war against the Jewish state.
A new poll reflects that Americans have become disenchanted with the idea of a two-state solution. The Saban Forum released the findings of a recent survey which reveals that 10% more Americans support a unified Jewish state than last year, bringing the total percentage of U.S. citizens in opposition to a two-state solution to 34%. This means that an increasing number of Americans favor the idea that all land currently disputed in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict should be a single Israeli state, which would provide equal rights for all of its citizens. This is in stark contrast with the demand of Arabs that Jews be forced to evacuate major areas of Israel in order to create a Palestinian-only state. The PA insists that Jews be barred from Palestinian areas, but Palestinians and Arab Israelis would retain their rights to reside in Jewish-controlled parts of Israel, including Jerusalem. The poll went on to reflect that 31% of Americans would like the United States to support Israel in the conflict, while only 4% favor the Palestinians.
Syrian sources are reporting that last week's airstrike in an area near Damascus destroyed a major Hezbollah weapons cache. While officials of the Lebanon-based terror organization have so far remained silent over the strike, a local Hezbollah-affiliated newspaper is claiming that Israeli jets launched airstrikes at the arms stockpile, including weapons capable of tilting the strategic balance, specifically missiles that could pose a threat to IDF aircraft. Israel is believed to have hit several arms convoys and facilities in Syria in the past, destroying sophisticated weapons en route to Hezbollah. During an address to his cabinet, Prime Minister Netanyahu said that the government is closely following developments in the Middle East and that Israel's hand will steadfastly remain on the regional pulse, and all threats to Israel will be handled with the same degree of responsibility that have been in the past.
The International Criminal Court has granted the Palestinians observer status. Last week, the ICC's organization body of 122 nations, meeting at the UN in New York, announced that it will allow the Palestinians to become observers at their summit meeting. The Palestinians have long threatened unilateral moves to gain international recognition while continuing their campaign of terror against Israel. They believe that their acceptance as members of the ICC is one step closer to obtaining full membership so that they can accuse Israel of alleged war crimes at The Hague.
The Islamic State has published photographs of its so-called Cubs of the Caliphate children's jihad training camp. Using social and jihadi networks, ISIS distributed images of young children holding, loading, and firing AK-47 assault rifles. The Islamic State's policy of using young children is being extensively documented by the United Nations, which is reporting that children as young as 11 have been forced to watch and even perpetrate heinous executions for the terror group themselves. In a related story, a Lebanese children's magazine is making international headlines for its use of caricatures to indoctrinate Lebanese youth to violence against Israel. The Hezbollah terror group publishes Mahdi magazine, encouraging young children to join resistance against their Jewish enemies. Praise is bestowed upon militants and martyrs, and a recent copy of the magazine featured the depiction of a boy who decided to become a suicide bomber and was hailed as a hero after killing 25 Israeli soldiers. The Shiite group also strongly promotes its allies in Iran. The magazine claims that it has 30,000 monthly subscribers, with 3 separate editions aimed at different age groups between 4 to 17.
King Abdullah of Jordan gave a candid interview to PBS TV's Charlie Rose last week. The Jordanian monarch issued a grave threat to Israel, saying more Palestinian intifadas are on the horizon. The king is desperately trying to hold on to control of the Hashemite kingdom, whose population is mostly Palestinian. There have been increasing calls to recognize Jordan as the Palestinian state, a move that could solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but could also end Hashemite rule over the Palestinians in Jordan. For that reason, King Abdullah is one of the largest proponents of a Palestinian state within the borders of Israel, and he works to perpetuate the Palestinian refugee problem, as well as incite the Palestinians to violence. He told Charlie Rose that if the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not solved, there will be a 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th intifada. Palestinians have become problematic for the king. Just last week, Israel shared intelligence with Amman that the Muslim Brotherhood was operating on Jordanian soil, transferring weapons and training terrorists. Jordan acted on the information and arrested 31 Palestinians for involvement in the terrorist plot.
U.S. President Barack Obama has signed a waiver that will again postpone the opening of the American Embassy in Jerusalem for another 6 months, even though Congress passed a law in 1995 declaring that Jerusalem should remain an undivided city and should be recognized as the capital of the State of Israel, with the moving of the embassy to the city no later than May 31st, 1999. A waiver was negotiated, however, before the enacting of that law that enabled the sitting president to postpone its enforcement for 6-month periods. The issue of Jerusalem passes the president's desk twice a year, and for the past 18 years it has been continually delayed. New legislation is currently being advanced in the House called H.R. 3269, reaffirming the United States' recognition of Israel's sovereignty, security, and rights to its lands. If passed, this legislation will remove the presidential waiver and begin the process of moving the United States Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, the undivided capital of the Jewish state.
Shurat Hadin, the Israeli Law Center, has filed a formal complaint against the Presbyterian Church USA for having ties to a terrorist organization and abusing their tax-exempt status. The report, submitted to the IRS, documents that PCUSA delegates met with Hezbollah officials in Lebanon. It also provides evidence of the group publishing anti-Semitic materials, enacting a racist policy to divest from American companies doing business with Israel, lobbying the U.S. Congress, and distributing political advocacy materials in violation of its tax-exempt status as a religious organization. Attorney Robert Tulchin, the spokesperson for Shurat Hadin, released a statement saying it is high time the IRS took a long look at the Presbyterian Church and investigated its meeting with the designated terrorist organization Hezbollah, its lobbying activities, and its anti-Israel divestment policies.
During a meeting with leaders of Israel's Druze community, Prime Minister Netanyahu unveiled a plan for major investment in their and the Circassian communities. The proposal includes investment in education, infrastructure, and employment in their sectors. Although they are not Jewish, both of these communities are loyal to the State of Israel, and many serve in the IDF. 2 Druze police officers were killed in Jerusalem during the recent wave of Palestinian terror attacks, and the Prime Minister personally met with the spiritual leader of the community to convey his condolences. Druze and Christian Arabs have become targets of the Palestinians, who resent their allegiance to the Jewish state. Vowing to protect them in the fight against radical Islam, Netanyahu called them an organic part of Israeli society. saying that Israel and all of its citizens will defend their rights and their security.
UNESCO has announced that Tel Aviv will be joining its list of the world's most creative cities in the area of media arts. The Creative Cities Network was established by the UN Group to encourage international cooperation between cities that are committed to investing in creativity as a driver for sustainable urban development, social inclusion, and enhanced influence of diverse cultures throughout the world. This designation will allow Tel Aviv to cooperate with other cities to promote creativity and strengthen participation in cultural life and to integrate culture in economic and social development plans. Tel Aviv Mayor Ron Hulda'i released a statement saying, 10 years ago, UNESCO declared Tel Aviv's White City a World Cultural Heritage Site, recognizing the importance of the city's past architecture. The decision to include Tel Aviv in UNESCO's Creativity Cities Network reflects the world's recognition of the city's contribution to the present and the future. It is being recognized as a vibrant center of cultural creation and groundbreaking technology, and a center for the visionary digital innovation scene.
More than 1 million Jewish children have been killed by abortion in Israel since 1948. Israel is currently engaged in a demographic war for its very survival as a Jewish state. Imagine what a difference 1 million more Jews would have made for Israel. Friends of Efrat saves the lives of thousands of children every year by providing support to pregnant women in distress. Since 1977, Efrat has saved over 30,000 lives and is recognized as a world leader in preventing abortions. You can play a major role in Israel's survival now by helping us save Israel's unborn children.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here in yet another beautiful day on our rooftop studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Daphne Kaufman, the Director of Policy and Strategy for the Reut Institute. Daphne, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
Daphne, tell our viewers a little bit about what is the Reut Institute?
Well, we're a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to have a substantive and significant impact on Israel and the Jewish people. And we have a pretty unique way of doing so. Basically, what we do is specialize in identifying challenges and opportunities that are not on the radar of decision makers, of institutions that have Israel and the Jewish people's best interests at heart. We act as a bit of a fundamental early warning system, alerting about these challenges and opportunities, and then we actually create strategies to help the government of Israel and other institutions be more relevant to seizing or addressing what's on the horizon.
One of your big initiatives coming up is the Israel Legitimacy Hackathon. Tell us a little bit about that.
So Reut has been involved in what we call the assault on Israel's fundamental legitimacy basically since 2007. We have done a lot of work in really identifying and mapping this threat and in mounting a response that has really involved all of the major stakeholders on this issue. But recently, and with the events this summer in Gaza, we felt that a new push was necessary. And a lot of what we see in terms of those people that wake up day and night with the goal of eliminating Israel from the face of this earth, what we see is that there's an evolution in how well organized they are. And a lot of this organization is done via the internet and through digital tools. On the other hand, we have Israel, the startup nation, and we have a lot of friends of Israel that are willing to pitch in and help. So this initiative, called the Israel Legitimacy Hackathon, is based on helping our side create technological tools that can help compensate for our numeric disadvantage and really win this war for Israel's international legitimacy.
You know, we see crazy bias, not just in the media, but on the university campuses and elsewhere. Where is this coming from? Is this just because people don't have the right information? Is this classic anti-Semitism, or is this just religious hatred?
Well, I think it sits on a lot of those things that you mentioned. But really what I think has happened in recent years is that a network, and that's really the strength of this phenomenon, is that it's a network of civil society organizations and individuals who otherwise are really on the fringes of society. They're not powerful. But what they have been able to do is blur the lines between criticism of Israeli policy and delegitimization of the State of Israel. And they do this in pretty sophisticated ways. They use the language of human rights, the analogies of apartheid, things that help them appeal to people who I may not agree with their opinion, but these are not necessarily the people that wake up in the morning and want to see the State of Israel no longer exist. Therefore, what really should be a marginal fringe campaign gets a huge, huge following. And that's what's made it disproportional in terms of its global impact.
You say it should be a marginal campaign, but we've seen in recent terrorist attacks in Jerusalem, even mainstream news media outlets like CNN and AP are covering these terrorist attacks as the fact that, you know, Israeli police are shooting the terrorists rather than the terrorists killing the innocent people in Israel. Where is this all coming from?
So this is something that's very related to the problem that we're dealing with, but it's different. And here it's important for me to say, when we use the word delegitimization, we mean one thing, and that's the negation of the right of Israel to exist or of the Jewish right to self-determination. So there are a lot of things that I think are harsh and unfair about the way Israel is judged, and it may be related to the delegitimization campaign, but that distinction is really important in terms of guiding the way we strategically deal with this issue.
Well, you know, we saw in Europe before Operation Protective Edge, they would call, you know, death to Israel or destruction of Israel, and they'd say, we're not anti-Semites, we're anti-Zionists. But it seemed that in the Gaza war in the last summer, that mask fell down, and, you know, people were just saying death to Jews like they always did traditionally in Israel. So is there really a dividing line in people who want to delegitimize Israel and people who just want the destruction of the Jewish people?
I think these are both extremes that exist, and I agree with you that they're very much converging and that we saw a lot of that happening in Europe. But I think that that is a distinctly different phenomenon than people who judge Israeli policy, even if they judge it unfairly.
One of the battles that we're losing is on the university campuses. We've seen videos in the last few weeks about, you know, people are even more harsh or critical of Israel, the only free democracy in the Middle East, than they are of ISIS, who are beheading people on national television.
It's insane.
What are some of the things that Reut can do to combat the phenomenon on the campus?
So there are two aspects of this strategy which we're most forcefully addressing. One of those is based on the realization that if what we're combating is a network, it takes a network to fight a network. There's nothing that a hierarchical structure, there's no decision that the Israeli government can take that's going to really help those campus activists who are very often alone in facing this challenge. What these people need is not to be alone. They need to be connected to the network of extremely effective and motivated pro-Israel and Jewish organizations out there. And many of our strategies have to do with how do we create these platforms of collaboration? How do we create information sharing, sharing of best practices, sharing of additional resources to empower people on the front lines? And a very important insight related to this is that there are no successes in the fight against BDS, in the fight against delegitimization campaigns that are not local. I'll say it differently. All the successes are local. The success of this whole campaign equals the success of helping that campus activist on a campus somewhere in North America. That's where it is.
Daphne, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
Israel stands before a very dangerous and potentially existential time. And much of that battle is in the international arena, and it's a battle for consciousness, it's a battle for hearts and minds, it's a battle for Israel's fundamental legitimacy. And Israel needs all the support it can get in this fight.
Thank you, Daphne, for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
It is heartbreaking to learn that there are over 40,000 abortions in Israel every year, many of which are due to financial concerns. The Efrat organization saves the lives of thousands of Jewish children each year by providing support to pregnant women in distress. Please help us save thousands more.
Up next, shining light from Israel.
They call their policy accommodation, and they say if we'll only avoid any direct confrontation with the enemy, he'll forget his evil ways and learn to love us. All who oppose them are indicted as warmongers. Now let's set the record straight. There's no argument over the choice between peace and war, but there's only one guaranteed way you can have peace, and you can have it in the next second: surrender. Admittedly, there's a risk in any course we follow other than this, but every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement. And it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight or surrender. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then? Well, Nikita Khrushchev has told his people he knows what our answer will be. He has told them that we're retreating under the pressure of the Cold War, and someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time, we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically. He believes this because from our side, he's heard voices pleading for peace at any price. Or as one commentator put it, he'd rather live on his knees than die on his feet. And therein lies the road to war, because those voices don't speak for the rest of us. You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaohs? The martyrs of history were not fools, and our honored dead who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis didn't die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay, there is a point beyond which they must not advance. Winston Churchill said the destiny of man is not measured by material computations. When great forces are on the move in the world, we learn we're spirits, not animals. And he said there's something going on in time and space and beyond time and space, which, whether we like it or not, spells duty. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
Please stay tuned for the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
When Israel was established in 1948, it was exactly as the prophet Ezekiel foresaw. Thus says the Lord, behold, I will cause you to come up from your graves, and I will bring you into the land of Israel. Israel literally arose from the ashes of the Holocaust, one of the greatest miracles in human history. Still today there are some 200,000 Holocaust survivors which still live in Israel. According to the Israeli government, there are still 1/3 of them who are in need and live below the poverty line. Over the past 3 years, the Lord placed a unique opportunity before the International Christian Embassy to help those heroes who survived the darkest chapter of Jewish history.
In December 2009, the Aid Department of the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, ICEJ Aid, was approached by Shimon Sabag, the director of the social welfare organization Yad Ezer Lehaver, who was looking for support for a special project. Having been shocked to see Holocaust survivors coming to his soup kitchen for food, he realized that there was a distinct need and began a project to house 14 survivors in the building next door to the offices of the organization.
When we were actually approached by the organization Yad Ezer Lehaver in Haifa, for Holocaust survivors, we somehow knew when we visited the project and visited the director that we had stumbled on something very unique. The project was very unique, there's nothing like it in the land, and also the organization itself had a proven track record. And we just knew that we had to start working with them.
Thanks to the generous giving of faithful Christian supporters worldwide, the ICEJ has assisted Yad Ezer Lehaver in achieving what was once just a dream, a neighborhood of multi-dwelling facilities able to provide practical care and a comfortable and safe home for more than 100 Holocaust survivors.
When we actually first met him, Shimon had a great heart and lots of dreams, but his vision for this place was at the most to maybe house 20 people. And we started on this together, not knowing what would happen, and seeing in the end this amazing street full of buildings.
The Haifa Home for Holocaust Survivors has captured the attention of the Israeli press and a number of Israeli leaders and dignitaries. At ceremonies marking the stages of completion, the attendance of senior government officials and leaders has given voice to the need to assist these individuals who have suffered so much. In the past year, the Haifa Home dedicated a synagogue on its premises to provide a place for the survivors to participate in Shabbat services and observe Jewish holidays. The synagogue also provided the opportunity for some of the survivors to have their bar mitzvahs, since many of them were denied this rite of passage due to being interned in concentration camps.
The Holocaust survivors are very old. They are from their end 70s into their 90s, and are quite a lot of them who are poor, they cannot live by themselves anymore, and who are lonely. And that's actually why it was so necessary to have a home for them, where they could feel cared for and they would be able to live their life in security and in a good atmosphere.
I didn't expect in my life that I'm going to end up here. Quiet, the price is right, I don't have to pay too much. And I'm so grateful to the International Christian Embassy. After all what we went through, they built for us a home where I'm going to spend the rest of my life here. I'm going to die here. And I'm grateful to all the people in the world who are helping us.
Please prayerfully consider what you can do in order to stand with us to help those last surviving heroes here in Israel.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.